Hi, people. This is DJ.
This is Ish.
And this is
Season
Season 3
3
of
Pero
Pero Let Me Tell You.
Buenos días.
No, buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Es que the thing is that buenas noches sounds like goodbye.
That's true. Buenas noches, llegó el tiburón.
Que ya llegó el tiburón. Are we recording?
We are recording.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number, what are we on? 108?
108. 108.
Oh, wow.
We're getting further and further away from where we wanted to have our party to celebrate 100.
Oh, my God. I was thinking, of course we were thinking the same thing. But I was thinking that, too. I'm like, once upon a time, we were like, no, we're not going to have it on the 100th. We're going to have it on, like, the 102. Now we're by 108, like, at this point,
125. I'm going to call it 125. It's a nice round number. It could still be done.
So welcome everybody to another Corona edition episode of Pero Let Me Tell You.
Let me tell you something. At this point, Corona, the beer, is getting so much free publicity. Like, they're sponsoring everything. Because everything is
right?
Everything's like Corona edition, the coronavirus. I think that's why people are calling it COVID-19, because they're tired of giving Corona free publicity.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, so a little side note. The other day, I was talking to my cousin, and I'm not going to say which cousin it was. Okay. And my cousin said something along the lines
I was going to say, am I supposed to guess? Is that what's happening? Or?
No, my cousin said something along the lines that this cousin of mine was laughing at the picture that we took with the disinfectant and the Burger King crowns. Yes. And this cousin of mine asks me, why are you wearing Burger King crowns? And I'm like, never mind.
La Corona.
I was like, never mind. So,
but you know what? Our listeners got it. I'm sure our listeners got it.
So everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. I hope
Gabe Kaplan is okay.
Gabe Kaplan? Who's Gabe Kaplan?
Mr. Cotter.
Oh. Well, we haven't heard of a 70s star fall ill to the coronavirus, so I guess that's good.
That's a good thing. Right.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing for Mr. Carter.
Mr. Carter. Yeah, he must be okay then. Otherwise, we would have heard.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How are you holding up over there?
Well, I'm here. Like, it's one of those things that, like, again, we've talked about this a million times, and it's what, everybody is kind of experiencing. Like, I've explained here how, like, Tristan, like, my son, like, many kids, is just having a really hard time. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is and he isn't. It's not like he's, like,
he's not crying
miserable all the time. Right, but he's wants to do stuff, and, like, everybody feels bad for him because he can, and, he doesn't have a sibling, and, it's whatever. So I've been wanting to get him a pool for quite some time, and it doesn't exist. Inflatable pools do not exist.
What do you mean they don't exist?
Inflatable pools do not exist. You are lucky you will find a chupacabra before you find an inflatable pool.
How great if you find the chupacabra inside of an inflatable pool.
I could tell you don't have a child, that you're not going through these things.
Well, no, I don't. But also, I mean, of course you would have an inflatable pool. Actually, it's funny because my sister just put an above-ground pool in.
But your sister got one of those enormous,
No, but I mean,
pools,
they have
right?
the space, también,
Right, no, but like, those things are not going to run out during the coronavirus, because it's like, people are not going to make that big of an investment. I'm sure that they had planned before all of this of putting one of those in. But inflatable pools...
Actually, so I have to say, they were planning it, but it got accelerated because it got to the point where she was like, "O compro la
Right,
piscina o mato los chiquitos."
but those pools are more of an investment because those pools, the cheapest one is like $1,000. The cheapest one starts at like $1,000, and they can go up to like $3,000-$4,000.
Yeah.
So that's not like a quick like, oh, my kid is driving me crazy. Let me go buy him a pool. You know, that's more like a decision. Okay, we are going to get this.
They don't have those plastic ones.
The only thing I found the only thing I found, and I even went to the Target in Midtown, the one I used to go to when I lived downtown, because I thought the logic was like, no, but the logic was like, okay, there's less children in this part of town.
True.
People that do have children, this is all condos.
They live in
don't have a yard to put a condo. Don't have a pool, space to put a pool in their condo. So maybe here there is nada. No, and online you can't find them. My parents have ordered like 3 of them, and it says, "Oh, it's on its way," and then it never gets here. I ordered 2 of them on Walmart. And it will send me a confirmation and everything. And then the next day I'm like, nope, it's either back order or they just don't have it. And one of them was back ordered to like September 19th. And I'm like, September 19th?
But I think it's not just that, it's everything. Because the other day I ordered something, which actually it came in yesterday. But I ordered it like maybe 2 weeks ago. And initially when I ordered it, it was like, oh, the earliest that we'll find that item is like May 10th. And I'm like, pero... like 2.5 weeks to get. I mean, everything is back ordered.
Well, because in your case, probably there's a back order because Amazon and a lot of delivery services are putting preference to some orders over others.
Right.
In the case of the pool, it's just that the demand is much higher than the supply. That's like another thing. Another thing that in supermarkets, it's not completely gone, but it's really low. Go to the baking aisle. Most of like the cake mixes are gone.
Yeah. Like flour, sugar, confectioner sugar.
Because people are baking. It can be. I haven't stopped baking. When did I ever bake?
Well, don't bake too much because I'm working on a surprise for you and our friends that I'm gonna be distributing in the next couple days.
Yes, but I've been. The point is that I'm not. I generally, I love to cook and I cook a lot, but I'm not a baker. And I've already done like 3 or 4 things, and I bought like 3 or 4 other mixes that are there, because that's just the new normal. Like that's what you got to do.
That's what we do.
But
we make bread.
We make bread. Pool man, who knew that an inflatable pool was going to be such a commodity? I'm looking for a regular inflatable pool. Like, no, they don't exist.
You're not looking for anything gran cosa. I
don't know because the kids are stuck at home.
No,
you
but
can't
I'm saying
take them to a public pool.
To your point, you're not looking for anything, out of the ordinary.
But it makes sense. Like, the same thing. The reason I'm doing it is the reason a million people have done it. And I'm sure, our listeners probably are like, I can't find that either. So anyway, the quarantine life.
So let me ask you something, just because you brought it up, and you're saying you're doing baking now, and I've been baking and I've been cooking more, and I feel like, at least on my for myself, I feel like I've been doing a lot of things that before either I didn't have the time, or because I had to drive to work, and so it's an hour out of the day, and then the gym and and I feel like I've been catching up on things and getting a lot of things moving forward, and there's a meme that I saw the other day that I want to share with you. And I want to hear
about how we're all enjoying company baking. I think I know which one.
No, it's not that one. It's not that one. So I'm going to read it to you, and then it ties into something else that I want to talk about. That I didn't realize was even a thing that could exist. So this meme, it starts off by saying, if you don't come out of this quarantine with, and then it's 3 bullet points: a new skill, your side hustle started, or more knowledge. And then it says, you never lacked time, you lacked discipline. And then it has that last part crossed out, and it says, you're doing just fine. We're going through a collective traumatic experience. Not everyone has the privilege of turning a pandemic into something fun or productive. Stay healthy. Now, I have my feelings about what side of that I agree with and what kind of participation ribbon bullshit it got turned into, but I'd like to hear your side.
Well, I partly agree with it because, we're sitting very lucky in a position that, we watch the news, we know what's going on, we know how many people are sick, we know how many people have died, but thankfully our friends and family are okay. Yeah, we're working from home, and there's moments that we get anxious, and we're like, oh, but all in all, things are okay. But I think obviously there's been a lot of families that have been touched by this. Either somebody has died or somebody has gotten sick. I also think that you're an essential worker. If like the ones we've been trying to profile on our page, I think you also have a different perspective about this because, if you're a nurse or somebody that works in a hospital or somebody that's, we've talked about before, is in the front lines,
right.
From the challenges that they had from getting PPE, personal protection equipment, to just the danger they now have of getting infected and infecting then infecting everybody else. I think that depending on who you are, it causes different challenges. So I could see how my reality and my take on all of this, my experience is different than somebody else's. Because if, God forbid, I would have a loved one that was sick, like, I say this all the time, like, I've always been, like, extremely concerned about, like, my grandmother. My grandmother's 93. It's like, oh my God, like, who's going to my parents' house? Like, that's why I've been so strict, because how I am with, like, visiting my parents' house. It's like, nothing's going to keep me away from visiting my parents and my grandmother.
Right.
But that's why at the very beginning, I became very concerned once I understood, the effects of this and the consequences, that it's like, oh my gosh, certain people are susceptible. So, yeah, I think that it depends on your reality and some people's experience on this. Look, there's people that are, I put it on my personal Instagram. Earlier this week, I had Tristan all day, and I personally got a little bit of cabin fever because, like, I had him all day. He had done his homework. He had done all his schoolwork. He was done by like 1, and I had him at that point, all day. It was getting late. He was getting like really antsy. I was getting antsy. There, you know how there's moments that you're going through your like TV and there's nothing to watch. It's like I don't want to watch anything.
Right.
I didn't want to be online. I just wanted to go out, and I took a drive.
Right.
And I drove all around Miami. I don't know if you saw my Instagram post.
Yes,
I did like a grand tour of Miami. I ended up in Key Biscayne, which I never go to Key Biscayne. I literally drove up to El Farito, and El Farito was closed.
Oh, claro.
But what I did was that I then started going into like the neighborhoods of Key Biscayne, of the rich. And, it's a very affluent neighborhood, obviously, with beautiful homes. But everybody there was, like, walking around. There were a bunch of houses with people, like, together, social distancing, but, together, people in golf carts.
Which they love on Key Biscayne.
Dogs, and I'm thinking, like, this is, like, utopia. Like, quien camina por ahí is gonna be like, coño, life here is good.
But you haven't seen that at all in your area? Because I see that here in the Gables.
No, I have. No, I have that too. No, I have that too. No, here in my neighborhood, I see that all the time. But here, like, the day that I went, at the time that I went, it was like, because it was like 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6 o'clock.
Like, people were quote unquote done with work. It was like the end of the work day.
Everybody was out, right? Because in the regular time, that's the time people are getting home from work, and there's traffic, and the kids, and the this, and the that.
Right.
And I'm like, this is like a utopia, like here. But that's not necessarily the reality of other people. Because you know what I think about a lot? I think about if you're someone who lives like in New York City, like in Manhattan, especially that Manhattan had like really strict quarantine rules. And if you have an apartment that doesn't even have a balcony and you can't even go outside, like that's serious. Because, most people in Manhattan, as you know, who live in New York, don't even have a car. They can say, you know what, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
There's no, right.
Right. So it's like,
but with that said, I mean, the people I know that live in the city proper as well, like, they're going for bike rides and they're taking walks, and to a degree they're trying to break. But
it's a different thing because in Manhattan, everybody usually lives in a smaller apartment.
That's why they're going for walks.
But it's very different than when you live in a larger house. And you go, you know what? I'm done with my bedroom. I'm going to go to the family.
Right.
You know, I'm going to go to the backyard or whatever. But yeah, like that must be like confining, or to be in that situation in a place like Manhattan with kids, because now the kids can't go out and the playgrounds are closed.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, yeah, you're going to go out walking with your kids, but kids, you know, aren't going to be like, yeah, let's take a 30-minute power walk, Mom. You know,
Well,
like,
New York kids are used to walking, so maybe they'll be okay with that. Kids down here don't walk, so here they'll be like, "Oh, I'm tired," and they get like to the end of the block.
yeah, but you know, they still can't go to a playground.
No, that's fair.
So,
But I don't. What I was getting at is, and those are all valid points. But my thing is, what I disagree with this meme inherently is this thing that it's just like, you know, like we can't just accept the meme at face value of just like, you know what, look on the bright side of things, quote unquote. You know what, you're stuck at home. I don't know. Catch up on your reading, learn something. I'm making shit up. You've always wanted to, like, you know, write a book. I don't know, give it a shot. It becomes this, like, you know, no, you're good enough and it's okay. And, you know, we oh, pobrecito. You know, it's this again, I call it like participation ribbon bullshit, you know, where it's just like, you know what, yes, there are some people who are going through legitimate anxiety and legitimate, you know, mental problems and issues and coping with this, but then there's also people who are just boggle, you know what I mean? And so I'm sorry, I'm not going to give everybody a free pass just because, you know, a meme wants to decide it's so.
Well, but I mean, I don't think it's a matter of a free pass. I mean, people handle things differently, and I mean, and again, I think it's your reality because, for example, this is something I've talked about here. You know, I have Tristan in the daytime hours in terms of, you know, the work hours, and I have to tell you that, it's one, and he's 6, so it's not like it's even a baby. It's 1, and it's overwhelming because it's like, you know, from waking him up to, you know, or in you know, when he's going to go to school, like getting his stuff ready, you know, setting up his computer, setting up his Zoom, making sure he's doing it, reviewing his homework, you know, if he has questions, then, you know, having lunch, preparing his lunch, cleaning up after lunch. Then, you know, you got to give him recess, and, you know, you got to keep him in routine. That it's like, that's one that, like, by the end of the day, it's like, oh my God. So now I could just imagine if you have multiple kids, like it's overwhelming.
They entertain each other at a certain point.
No, but still, the kids are in school. So
true,
I mean,
true.
It's a lot. I mean, it is a lot. And then obviously you still have stuff to do, whether it's work or errands that you have to run in the house.
Right.
You know, like I find that, you know, I'm constantly cooking and cleaning. Like it's like, how many times a day do I do dishes?
I
Like,
have done more dishes. I've done more dishes than I think I've done in my life.
So I think it depends. This is one of these things that everybody's experience is very, very different from one another. You know, I'm sure that there's people, and I never like to play like the single card, like, oh, when you're single, you have no responsibility, because even, you know, I've never liked that, because everybody's reality is your reality. But I mean, I'm sure there's people that, you know, whether they're single or don't have kids or whatever, that, you know, like they wake up, they do what they have to do for work, and that's their day.
Right.
You know, they may have their own frustrations and their own things, but, you know. But look, I don't think that being in quarantine, to go back to what you were saying or about the meme, that, you know, write a book, you know, do this. It is what it is. I mean, there's people who have a million things to do and still have time to do whatever. Right. And then there's people who have a lot of time who are not productive. So I don't think that this is going to change anything of that.
No, and that's fair. And I was using it more like a springboard because I saw another post that somebody put that I, like, intellectually I understand, but emotionally I'm just going to go ahead and call white nonsense. Mm. Have you ever heard of toxic positivity?
Oh my God. Another kind of term for me to learn. I don't know. Okay. Is it positive? Is it, I don't know, the B-side to Britney Spears' Toxic? I don't know. So what's toxic positivity?
So toxic positivity, and I'm literally reading the definition and a couple of examples. So what is toxic positivity? Toxic positivity is the excessive and ineffective overgeneralization of a happy and optimistic state in any situation, in the denial, minimization, and invalidation of genuine human emotional experience. When a person exhibits toxic positivity, they deny any and all negative experiences that make us human and lives their life this way. So, for instance, when is positivity toxic? When we're hiding what we really feel, we're dismissing our emotions, we're feeling guilty for the negative emotions we feel, we minimize other people's experiences by saying, don't think about it. So, some things is like, instead of saying everything happens for a reason, say it's okay to feel bad sometimes. So, that's what I'm saying. Like, intellectually, I know what they're saying. I just think that the phrasing is stupid.
I don't even know what to say about that.
I've known you way too long to know that's true. That's a lie. That's not true. Sorry. Again, you shouldn't trivialize people's emotions and you should, acknowledge how people feel. But I think that to say that if you have a generally positive outlook on life, it doesn't, I like to think that I'm a generally positive person. Doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge when bad things happen. It doesn't, mean that I don't realize that life is not all sunshines and rainbows, but I'm not going to dwell on it. Like, no, ¿pa qué? ¿Pa sentarme en una esquina ahí a llorar y darme latigazo? No, thank you. I'd rather not.
What I actually wanted to, now that you're talking about this, it reminded me of something that I saw during, now, and again, Twitter, what we say here.
The devil.
Twitter, and I don't understand, why is it that people, their opinions and whatever. Anyway, did you hear about the whole thing Tia Mowry got shit for?
I did. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but I did. She basically said something like, in times like these, you see who your real friends are by seeing who reaches out to you, or something like that.
Right, and calling each other up and taking care of themselves.
Right.
She got this backlash.
Oh, that in times like this, it's not about you, and it's not about ourselves, and da 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 da. And it's like,
but
that's not what she said. That's not what it was.
It's not what she said. But it's one of these things that I don't think it has a real right or wrong answer. Right. Look, I think it is nice in a time like this because you know what? I've called a lot of people during this time that I generally don't regularly call.
Me too. I've texted a lot of people who I would, talk to or communicate with de vez en cuando. And it's just like,
right,
to see how they are.
Right. Just to check up on them. Just to, say hello and whatever. So there is some truth to that. It's like, I think that for me, naturally, it just came about that way. But yes, at the same time, going back to what we were saying a little bit, I think that if you're home and you have several kids and you're pulling your hair out and you still are working and all that stuff, you don't maybe have the time. You don't have the time to be like, did I call this person? Did I call that? So I don't think it's really like a right or wrong answer. I think if you want to call the people around you to, say hello and see how they're doing, call them. And if you can't, you can't.
The fact that somebody responded to the meme by saying, this is wrong. It's not about you, blah, 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 blah. Actually, what that tells me is that you felt that they were criticizing you. So hence, you made it about you. Because they weren't saying anything inherently wrong. They were just saying something that if you can do it, you can do it. They were not saying, it doesn't matter if you've got other responsibilities. You should drop everything and talk to other people.
Even in a time like now, like this, it's like, why are people getting to these Twitter arguments? Oh my God, stop it! You know
what I point to when as a prime example, and this has nothing to do with COVID. This is actually from way before. The guy who won? I think he won America's Next Top Model, the deaf guy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody at some point or something posted something to the effect of, I don't know if it was a tweet or whatever, something that said essentially like, if you watch TV with closed captioning on, we can't, I can't date you or something like that, right? He went off on because, the deaf community, how else are we supposed to? And it's like, okay, wait. I don't think that the inference of that statement was, I hate deaf people. And anybody con dos dedos de frente would understand and interpret, no pun intended, that was meant for hearing people who also have the closed captioning. You know, that would be like me like saying like, you know, I can't date a blind person. They read Braille.
You know, when I realized the toxicity of the internet, toxic, of online, like just people talking online, and I've for years and years, I've followed this blog called The Next Miami, and The Next Miami is kind of like an architecture blog. It's for people who really, you know, like me. I love buildings and architecture and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It kind of like, you know, shows like projects that are going to be happening in Miami. Like, oh, you know, they're building, you know, downtown.
Like the redesign of Coconut Grove.
They just exactly. You know, they'll show pictures of the rendering. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, oh, today they broke ground on this lot in downtown, which will be the, you know, 700 unit, you know, blue sky apartment, you know, whatever.
Right.
Whatever. It's to show like the different projects that are currently happening, and generally because they're in, you know, they're new projects, they'll show like the architectural renderings, and then as it's being constructed, they'll show update. You cannot get more benign.
That's true. That's pretty that's pretty innocuous. Yeah.
Benign than an architecture blog.
Right.
You have to see the comments of the people on there. Oh, why are they building this building when they could build a public school? And, you know, they're spending, all these investors should be spending their money on public education. Or who designed that building? That building is super ugly. They need to start, you know, hiring students, you know, from the local architecture schools. This is simply a blog to show the buildings. That is all.
Yeah, these are not the architects. These are not the funders.
Right. I remember. You know where I used to live?
Yeah.
In downtown, which was a very, very, very nice building. There was someone who I'll never forget went on a rant to say that my condo where I lived looked like communist housing, and I'm like,
sorry,
Mijo.
What?
Oh yes, the Marina Blue looked like communist housing. I'm like, Mira, if Marina Blue looks like communist housing, then I don't know what people in Cuba and the Soviet Union are complaining about, because they live in prime real estate. Bull for me, who lived in a communist housing but was paying capitalist prices.
That's the worst part about it.
Right? So when you see that type of stuff, that's why I don't make a sound of anything, whether it's a blog. I don't respond to anything, and it's a shame because I would love to, you know, respond.
The problem is that you want to engage and people want to fight.
Right. There's only 2 accounts. I will say it right out loud. 2 accounts, actually 3 accounts that I actually somewhat take some type of dialogue in. I don't forget now if it's in my personal Instagram or in the Pedo's Instagram. I follow IG Ballparks, Instagram Ballparks, and in that one, I respond, and there's some good dialogue. Okay. I also respond to, which we follow on our Instagram, Miami Stadium.
Miami Stadium, yes.
He's all about like Miami nostalgia, and he
knows his shit.
Who runs it.
Well, he or she
know their shit.
knows their shit.
They know their shit about Miami history. So
actually, you know what? We don't know who runs it, but Seth does. So we should ask him.
He or she who follows it, they know their stuff, and the people that follow that page also are kind of like Miami history geeks. So I fit right along. And the other one that I love is the one of Hialeah. Because like the history that they write there about Hialeah is like, oh my God, do you have like a PhD in history? So those are the few, like, notice it's 3 that I have found that you can have some like meaningful dialogue
discourse.
Or some engagement with.
Right.
So anyway, speaking of engagement, there's something I want to bring up.
Okay.
So this is going to be kind of like a hot topic. So I read, and when I read this, I immediately thought about you.
Okay.
That one of the books that have now been banned is The Great Gatsby.
What the hell are they banning?
And The Great Gatsby now joins.
That is like my favorite book. You know this.
That's why I thought about you.
Yeah.
That's why I thought about you. So The Great Gatsby now joins a canon of books like To Kill a Mockingbird,
Okay.
and Catcher in the Rye, among other American classics that have been banned.
Now it's been
So,
banned. In
It's been banned for overt sexual content.
Okay. Whoa.
Now-
Whoa. Oh. Okay.
Now,
That's not even.
I read The Great Gatsby like every kid in high school did.
Mhm.
And I think I read it I don't know if I read it in college, but I read it again, and I've seen the movie. I don't remember an overt sexual scene.
I have read that book like 6 times.
Nonetheless, somebody thinks there is.
Now, I want that person to go look up the word overt and then come back and tell me how their interpretation differs from that of, society. Because, okay, The Great Gatsby has no sex scenes. Most of the sex in The Great Gatsby, excuse me, that does occur is between Tom and his mistress. I can't remember her name right now. I mean, she's his mistress, so obviously they're having sex, but they don't, it's not like they're doing Danielle Steele version, where she's like, she rode his rock hard member. I mean, there's none of that, okay? I mean, it's just inferred. And then there's even a like literally, I think it's like a page where Nick may or may not have had sex with another man, but literally if you blink it and aren't really paying attention, they essentially yada yada over it, and then it's done.
Right, but it's conversation. It's not a scene.
Maybe that,
So,
but there's no sex in Great Gatsby.
So when I found out about this, I kind of contacted a old friend of ours who was our teacher in high school.
I don't think she'd like to be called old.
No, well, she's an old friend, so we're old too. But a teacher that we love very much, that
very near and
was
dear.
a high school teacher of us, and she told me that Shakespeare isn't even on the curriculum anymore.
What?
Yes, because you know what? When that was actually the reason I contacted her, because I said, wait a minute, if The Great Gatsby got banned.
Right.
Banned in the USA for overt sexual,
like Dr.
whatever.
Luke.
So, ¿a dónde tú me dejas a mí? If,
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet, because Romeo and Juliet had sex. So I was having a conversation with her about this, and what she was telling me was that right now what they're reading in most curriculums, obviously each school and each teacher has, a certain amount of discretion in terms of what they read, but like any curriculum, it starts from the top, so certain things are discouraged.
Okay.
Certain books. But what she pretty much told me is that in most curriculums nowadays, they don't really teach classic American literature anymore.
What?
Or even British literature. They are reading like nonfiction passages. So not the true great classics. And
like they're reading Andy Rooney?
There's so much to say about that I don't think, we would have to have like a special, pero let me
it would have to be a multi-part episode. Like,
yes. And here's my thing with it. And now I could speak
like
as a parent. This is where I could speak now as a parent. Well, he's in kindergarten, but let's say he was in middle school or in high school or whatever.
Uh-huh.
If my kid, I found out, was going to read a book that I objected to for whatever reason, whether faith-based because of what I believe or don't believe, or for whatever reason that I did not want him to read that book, I would simply go to the teacher and tell him, hey, I don't want my kid reading that book. Can you please accommodate him?
Right.
And I am sure that most teachers, most schools will accommodate him. Right? What I would not do is go rain on everybody's parade, because that's a different type of entitlement, right? We always talk about entitlement. That's a different type of entitlement, that you think that because you are outraged at something and you don't want your child reading something because of your ideals, that now you're going to complain, and it needs to be across the board. That is to me is a sense of entitlement.
That is for me right up there with those people who post that meme about reshare if you think we should bring back prayer in school, and I'm like, perfect. Whose prayer?
Right.
Whose prayer?
Right.
Because I guarantee you, most people who put that are not thinking about the Quran.
You're absolutely right. So are we going to allow somebody to pray, Our Father, but you're also going to let a child who's maybe Muslim, at the time of the day that they have to pray,
right, towards Mecca, and do the whole thing.
Towards Mecca, do their whole prayer. You're going to allow that? That's actually a very thought-provoking, conversation. But going back to the whole thing of the literature, it's like I would never think that the way that I want to raise my kid and what I want him reading or not reading is something that I want to impose on other people.
But that's because you're open-minded, Darian, because you're not one of these people who thinks that what you believe is the only thing that exists and the only thing that should be true.
Right. It's not like it's not like these kids are reading Mein Kampf, the autobiography of Hitler. It's like it's not like these kids are reading this,
or the autobiography of Larry Flint. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
It's not like we're talking overt, 50 Shades of Grey type of shit,
Right, exactly. It's not like for my kids, in English, that's what we're reading, Mom and Dad. We're reading 50 Shades of Grey. I'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
First of all, I'll be like, I want to meet your teacher.
Right. I have so many questions.
I have so many questions about the teacher. And then maybe I'll be like, listen, I don't think that maybe my kid should be reading this. But again, I mean, I was actually shocked to find out that To Kill a Mockingbird is no longer in the curriculum. Now, To Kill a Mockingbird is no longer in the curriculum because of the N-word, and that's a very, very sensitive subject.
But that to me, I understand it's sensitive, but at the same time, by eliminating a book like that, what the argument that I would make is that you are trying to. Nope. God, I didn't mean to use this word. Whitewash over that time period and the realities of it. And I think that's why a lot of times you have people through sheer ignorance or whatever you want to call it, who kind of grow up a little bit like ambivalent or oblivious to certain things because we can't use that because that says things that make people uncomfortable. No, make people uncomfortable. Make them uncomfortable so they understand shit.
Right. But when you are presenting something of 100 years ago,
but that's why it's context.
When you're presenting something of 100 years ago, that's what I'm saying. There still can be a way that you can present that work and respect today's sensibilities. Because again, back to Kill a Mockingbird, I also would give students the option. If you don't want to read this book and you don't want to be part of this conversation, then read another book. You can read another book and we could discuss that book as well. So I would certainly give people options. I wouldn't, pound them over their head in the book and like, you must read this book, even if you may think that it's, very good literature.
See, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think that kids need to be exposed to things that they may not want to be exposed to, just for the sake of broadening their mind. From a literary perspective.
I agree with that, but I also think that in today's sensibilities, whether you agree with the way
I hated Brave New World. I hated Brave New World. If they had given me an option after page 2, I would have been like, I'm done. Right,
but the thing is that people today are sensible for different reasons. And the thing is that I think that if you don't give people the option, it's kind of an all or nothing mentality. And I see it from the point of view that if you preface it with all of this, you give people an option and you still are open to going ahead with it, I rather less people go with it and read the book than not having to read the book at all. You see what I'm saying?
Agree to disagree, but yes.
So, so do you know who had kind of a bad week?
It could be so many people lately.
Victoria Beckham.
She did?
Yeah, so Victoria Beckham had to furlough, the term used nowadays.
Yes, the new term du jour.
It was about 30 to 40 employees from her Victoria Beckham boutiques. And I don't know if you knew this. Do you know that the Victoria Beckham line, I believe, has never, I think it has barely broken even. It hasn't turned a profit.
It doesn't surprise me for some reason.
Right, but it's been going on for over 10 years now. So
yeah, but she doesn't really have like a massive line. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't have like a lot of ready to wear and stuff like that. So I would imagine that it's probably not a huge business like, say, Jessica Simpson and her shoes.
So she had to furlough. I think it was anywhere between 30 to 40 employees. So it wasn't that many employees. And these employees had to go file for unemployment. And in the UK, they passed certain stimulus packages just like the ones here in terms of unemployment and stimulus to people. So now these people had to go and get payer funded resources because she furloughed these people.
Right.
And the timing was really bad because just like the week before, it had been in the news everywhere. Victoria Beckham would have been my neighbor. That her and David closed on their penthouse in 1000 Museum Park, and the penthouse, I believe, was close to $40 million.
No, vaya.
Yeah. Can you imagine if I would still be living there? They literally would have been my neighbors. I would have been walking. One of the days that you would have been visiting me, we would have been walking the street. I'm like, wait, is that the Beckham clan?
Okay, you know what? I don't know what would have happened if that happened.
So anyway, so the fact that was released, that made news everywhere, and the week later,
and then she has no money later.
Right. They were like, listen, it's not like it's thousands of employees, and these were people that worked in your boutiques. These were people with high salaries. Like, why didn't you just pay these people's salaries, right? So, what are your thoughts on that? Is she being cheap?
I think that if nothing else, it demonstrates that she's being a shrewd businesswoman, and as we already know, she's not such an innocent girl. So there's, I mean, I get where it is from like a business perspective, but at the same time, it's like, you have money. Like, we know you made money off of those, Chupa Chups and the Polaroid. And, listen, Spice Girls money is still making a nice chunk of change and interest for you.
Yeah, and the thing with her being a Spice Girl is the fact that, this is something that people don't know. The Spice Girls wrote their own music.
Yeah,
so they all those hits of the Spice Girls, she is part owner of the. Yeah. She gets a fifth of the Spice Girls music. And that not only is her music still played, but they use her music for commercials all the time.
Yeah.
So she's still raking in Spice Girls money.
Yeah, royalties are still
20 years
coming
later.
in. Yeah.
Right. They are. And, aside from what other ventures she has, because she, aside from her fashion line, she has been spokeswoman for a bunch of brands.
Yeah, she just started a makeup line.
She has been the face of this, the face of that, and she gets paid for all of that. Aside from that, she was married to at one time was the highest grossing
soccer player in the world,
highest paid athlete in the world. True. So I think she should have paid them. And I love
I think so. I think so.
I think she could have paid them.
I want to give them the
benefit. I would understand if she was the head of a company like the size of Ralph Lauren. And if she had to lay off thousands of people, okay, I understand that business-wise, you as much as it may hurt you, you can't save thousands of people, right? Because at the end of the day, you do have to look at your bottom line. But if you're talking about 30 to 40 people, which aren't, again, people that had high
they're not CEOs.
salaries, right? Like, I think she should have paid for it.
No, I think I agree. I agree with you. I think... And again, and sometimes in these instances, we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think she may have just gotten bad business advice. You know what I mean? I think it may have been literally go and meet with the accountant, go and meet with the business manager. And the manager kind of said, look, you need to do this, this, this. And she said, okay, that's what I pay you the big bucks to do. Go do what you think is right.
Right.
I don't think it was something like calculated. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh, blah.
Yeah, but even if it wasn't calculated, I think that there should have been a moment that she should have been like, oh shit, like
right. Sure.
I'm sure she didn't even think about tax money, but just from a human perspective.
I think that's the thing. I think on some level, I think it may not have even dawned on her the whole like, where does the unemployment check come from? You know what I mean? She's so rich that she may not have even thought of it.
Remember, she only has three things to wear: the little Gucci dress, the little Gucci dress, or the little Gucci dress. cut the girl some slack.
It's
right?
true. It's just very limited options to begin with.
So let's now transition to our interview. And before we get into that, there's one last thing.
People who wear black, right?
Yes. So obviously, like many people, we've binge watched a lot of stuff during the quarantine. So what I just finished binge watching, which should have been a whole topic on the show, was Little Fires Everywhere with Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. It is freaking insane. But then the other thing I binge watched, which segues into our interview, is What We Do in the Shadows. And as
you're welcome.
You will hear the thing. I am that guy. I've never cared for anything having to do with vampires. I've like slept through Interview with a Vampire. Remember when you made me sit through like for Daisy's birthday through like 3 seasons of what was it? True Blood. And I was like, I think that I'm gonna shoot myself because I'm not a big fan of the vampire genre
at all.
But there's an exception for everything. This show is one of the funniest shows I have seen. I can't remember what show I saw that I enjoyed and I laughed as hard as this one. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't care for vampires.
In preparation for our interview with Harvey Guillen, who plays Guillermo on What We Do in the Shadows, I rewatched all of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yo me estaba meando de la risa. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I think it's very funny, but the rewatchability is absolutely there.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's great. And actually, you know what happened to me? Because it's available on Hulu.
Yes.
I watched all of season 1, and then when I started watching season 2, I was like, crap, because they're currently putting first run episodes. I'm like, damn it, I ran out of new episodes. now I have to wait like everybody else.
You suffer like the rest of us.
Yes. So we have an interview with Harvey Guillen, who plays Guillermo on What We Do in the Shadows, and Guillermo is a force to be reckoned with, as you all will see when you watch the show. So without further ado,
yes, after a word from our sponsor. May, la primavera, flowers in bloom, and even better, it's National Burger Month, and Cuban Guys Restaurants has got the best way to celebrate. During National Burger Month, order a burger crafted by our own Burger Beast from the Cuban Guys locations in Hialeah, Kendall, and Miramar. Just jump online. You can go to CubanGuysRestaurants.com or even order through Facebook Messenger and get a delicious Burger Beast burger for pickup or delivery. Mira, you have so many options. You can get a traditional Beast burger. You can get a Beast burger a caballo, which means that it's got a fried egg on it. That's so damn good. You can get the Georgie Boy, which not only includes tartar sauce, but also features Burger Beast's signature Beast sauce. Yeah, it is a ketchup that has guava, sriracha, and I don't even have words to tell you how delicious it is. And you can buy a bottle through Cuban Guys Restaurants too. Cuban Guys also offers fritas, sandwich cubano, medianoche, un tostón sandwich. I mean, the options are endless. And because there's so much to try, why not use promo code PERO and get 10% off your total order? Cuban Guys Restaurants, Burger Beast, and 10% off with promo code PERO? I'm just saying, that sounds like the perfect Miami combo to us. Cuban Guys Restaurants. It's not just fast food, it's awesome food fast. All right, listeners. Now, today's guest is on what is inarguably, because argue with me and I'll fight you, one of the funniest TV shows on air currently. And I'm not just saying that because it definitively did answer the question, is Tilda Swinton a vampire? He is on FX's What We Do in the Shadows. We are here with Harvey Guillen. Nice to have you on the show, Harvey.
Hey, guys.
Let me tell you, Harvey.
Let me tell you. No, thanks for having me. This is fun.
I have to say...
I have to tell you that I'm just full disclaimer here. I'm not generally a fan of vampires. Like I don't really care for Interview for a Vampire. It's just not my thing. But this show, I binged that like it was like cupcakes and donuts. I couldn't get enough of it. So just congratulations on being part of that show. I mean, we're obviously going to talk about it, but congratulations on being part of that show because you turned like a person who's not into vampires into totally loving, that show. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, I'm always happy when people, watch a show and they have a similar story. Like, I wasn't really a fan of the vampires, or I was actually looking for the show to not be as funny as the movie. I wanted to, look at it and not like it, and I ended up liking it. So it's always a good sign when people like it and tell their friends, when they come back and they say, I got my mom hooked up on it. And I think somebody told me, was it yesterday? Yeah, they said, I got my 5-year-old. I was like, I don't think your 5-year-old should be watching this. I don't think you're supposed to. Yeah, I was like, no, let him watch it like in a couple of years, not right now. It's like, no, he loves Guillermo, and I was like, no, okay, let him watch like some of Guillermo stuff, but definitely don't let him watch like everything. The episodes are not for that age range.
Yeah, that's more of an 8-year-old thing than a 5-year-old, really. It's,
yeah, exactly, 8 years old. So before we go into like full blown, into the show. Talk to us a little bit about your background and how you started, because you've actually been around for some time. You've done things here and there. So talk to us a little bit on how you started into like show business and this crazy world.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for the last 10 years, like professionally. It's so funny when people like to call you an overnight success, but they don't see the legwork that goes into it.
It was a long night.
Yeah, my friend, she always says that, Jessie Moulton, she says that her dad's Leonard Moulton, that they always find it's funny when people call actors overnight successes when they're like, no, they've been around. You just haven't seen them. You just haven't seen everything they've done because they've done a small part here or a series regular for a show that only lasted one season. But I mean, I've been around like doing series. I was a series regular on 2 other shows. I did Eye Candy and I did Huge on ABC Family before it was Freeform, before the name change. That was my big break. That was my first show that I ever got cast in as a lead. And before that, I got, I was 6 years old when I saw the movie Annie, and I remember telling my mom that I wanted to be that. I wanted to be an orphan. And
oh my!
And she looked at me weird, and I just remember, what's wrong? And she's like, ¿Qué? ¿Estás loco? And I was like, what? And she's like, no, son actores or actors. And I was like, oh, well then I want to be an actor, Mom. And she's like, you got lucky you described what that was, because I was on a 9 path. She was like, no, there's some actores. And I was like, oh, well, I want to be an actor. It's like, no dinero para eso. There's no money for that. And I was like, what do you mean there's no money? You need money to play an orphan on television? I don't get that. It didn't make sense to me. Those kids are dancing and singing and they're in rags. And, coming from a single mom, immigrant parent, there was no luxury of getting an allowance. That was not that is not in the household. You don't get paid for doing dishes. That is your, goddamn duty. It's you don't get paid for that. And then so I was I was a little heartbroken because I realized at that age that no one was going to I didn't have the luxury of, having parents that, had that finance and had that stability that could give those kids more power to those kids who get it, but I wish they know how lucky they are, because
Where's
that's
your mom
not
from?
the norm, especially. Sorry?
Where's your mother? She's from where? You said child of Mexico.
She's from Mexico.
Mexico, okay.
She's from Mexico. Yeah, and so I just remember, I know how hard she was working. She was 3 jobs just to put food on the table, and literally I could have let that moment really ruin my aspirations of becoming an actor, and then I didn't stop. I kept dreaming about it, and then one day my friend from school said, "Oh, there's a class they're doing at the YMCA. There's an improv class for actors." And I was like, "Wow, a real class!" And at 6 years old, I was like, "Wow, we have to get it because we're 6 years old and we're going to take over the world."
Of course.
And I asked my mom if I can get the $12.50 that it was costing to take the class, and she was like, "No, that's loco. That's money for like laundry and whatnot." And I was just like, well, if I get the money, can I take the class? She goes, Nico, if you can get the money, you can do whatever you want. And it's like, this is America. And I was just like, well, then I will then. And she's like, okay, pues. And I was like, I will. And I was like, oh, damn, what are we going to get? $12.50. And I was just like, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. But I was walking home from school with her one day, and she and I were walking through a park, and I was like, Mom, what is that guy doing? It's so gross. He's going through the trash cans. And she's like, oh, no, vende los botes, mijo. He sells those cans. And I was like, you can sell trash and get money from it? She was like, yeah, you can sell cans, you can sell glass, and you get 5 cents a can or a bottle and blah, blah. And so I ran into her closet, a wire hanger, unhooked it, turned it into like a long, skinny hook arm, and went through trash cans to collect aluminum cans. And it
No
took me
shit.
2 weeks to earn about $6.25. And then it took me another 2 weeks to earn the remainder. I finally had enough money to take the 1.5 hour class. They divided the kids up into like the younger kids and the older kids. The younger kids were basically being babysat. Like they were just a babysitter basically. And they're like, okay guys, now we're going to be lions. Okay, we're all lions. And we're all, we're bears. Now we're bears. And I was like, I knew they were like, it was just babysitting, but I had such a rush of like the actual idea of taking this class and becoming an entertainer on the spot. Like I could do anything. You want me to be a bear? Okay, I could be a bear. I could be a dog. I could be a parrot. And then after it was done, the class was over. I had such a rush and adrenaline, and it was this crackle to it that I remember just thinking, oh man, that was fun. And I realized, oh shit, it took me a month to just raise the money for this one class. And I was like, do I really want to collect that gross, dirty trash and like go and sell it? And then I stopped and I said, yeah, I do.
That's
and
awesome.
I
But you know what?
answered.
That is a great story, and I'm really happy that we opened up with that story because, like, one of the things we love to do here in the podcast is kind of like discuss, no matter where you are in your life, discuss that like Hispanic Latino experience. And as you were saying about allowances, it's like Hispanic and Latino kids don't have allowances. Like that's something you see in like sitcoms and stuff like that. And also like a lot of times in our families, the arts are not that, it's not supported because our parents are immigrants. It's work, have secure work. And, being creative, sometimes it's not, it's not like what they want for their kids. So the fact that you have that drive so early on.
Yeah, I totally understood it. Like, I get it. My parents always, wanted me to be like a doctor or a lawyer. And like, I just remember that at that age, my mom remarried when I was about like 7, and my stepdad became my dad, and he was the most supportive, like out of the both of them, which is so weird because people were like, oh, you got a stepdad, that must have been tough. And I was like, no, he was actually amazing. Like he drove me to my first like real audition because my mom was like, no, actually, she was like against me being an actor all through my adolescence. Wow. And I remember being like, I think 13 or 12, and I wanted to go to this audition to like this totally phony, like like acting academy, the ones you find at the mall, like the Robert Powers or whatever, and then so it was like, Mom, they're having auditions, and she was like, no, que te dije que no, and I was like, oh, and I was heartbroken, and then I went. And I was in the living room, and my dad walked by, and so like he was like, go to the car, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And I was like, okay. And I went to the car, and I just sat in there, and I was so excited that my dad was like, and my mom like eventually found out, but she always had to be like that bad cop. It was good cop, bad cop, and I get it, but you want your kids to have stability. You want them to have a future that, through education is almost a guarantee. But you know what? Nothing in life is guaranteed, because I have friends who went to school for like, medical degrees and finance, and they're not doing anything with that, It's just like, that's the reality.
That's true.
Yeah. It's like you can't control anything. And so I say, let your kids do what they want to do and let them try, because even if they try and they fail, at least they try and they'll never resent or regret it. And I just think that, that's the way I think everyone should be.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about drive and determination, that at so young you were like, I'm going to pick up cans, make money, and literally pay for my, my classes.
Yeah, no, I mean, you had to work for it. But I think, it's also, again, as DJ said, one of the things, we talk about here is obviously him and I being Cuban American. I mean, we're Hispanic. We're born in this country, but we identify as culturally. And obviously on What We Do in the Shadows, your character's name is Guillermo. And first of all, I know I told you this before in writing, but like you steal the scenes, okay? Because it's one thing to be an over-the-top vampire, but you have this subtle nuance of insanity running through every single one of your lines that you read, that it's just like, he will snap at any moment, and we all are just waiting for the day to happen. Like, let's just put that out there. But was that character
it's funny, like...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just
it's funny that you say that, because in season 1, that's how I felt all the time. People were like, I love the looks you do to the camera. And I was like, that's because half of the time, like, Guillermo doesn't know what's happening. It's all happening so quickly around him. And Harvey, the actor, doesn't know what's happening because they don't tell us like the scripts ahead of time. So then we get to set and we read the scripts, the day before that week, but then they'll change things. And then so really my eyes were just like, what's happening? And the cameras would be like moving, which makes it look as realistic as possible. But I always like to say in joke that Guillermo was really just, 1 second away from like being a victim or snapping.
So Harvey, something I'm like really curious about, because I always think about this. So with this show, when you as an actor get the script, like what did you even think about this? Because when you start to like analyze the show, it's like a reality type kind of real world show about vampires that are all crazy, and there's a familiar. Like how did that read when your agent sends you this script and he's like, here's this reality show about vampires? I'm just curious, how did that go?
Well, the funny part is, like, I didn't book this in the traditional way. I didn't even get the script like that. I went to a wine and cheese night at my friend's brother's house, and it was a small group. It was her husband and the newborn baby and her brother and her friend from her past, Yvonne. And we were just hanging out, like talking whatever, politics or anything. And the next day I got a text from an unknown number, and it was her friend. She goes, "Hey, this is Yvonne. I hope you don't mind. I got your number from Mimi." And I was like, "Oh, no worries." I was like, that's cool. And she's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I think you're really funny. And I think you're fucking hilarious. And I think you should audition for my fiance's new show." And I was like, "Now, wait a minute. I'm not doing one of those Hollywood auditions where it's like, what back alley do you want me to audition in?" And it's just like, no, it's a real thing. It's called What We Do in the Shadows. And I heard about the movie. I hadn't seen the movie yet. And I was like, "Oh, like the movie?" And I was like, and they're like, "Yeah." And it's like, I was like, "Oh, cool." I was like, "Okay." And it's like, "Well, Allison Jones is the casting director." And I was like, "Allison?" I was like, she casts, I mean, if you know the casting director, she's cast everything under the sun, from like The Office, Bridesmaids, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like the list goes on. Golden Girls. Like she's the casting director in Hollywood that you want to like go into her office just to say hello. And I have never gone into her office. Yeah. And so I was like, I will go. I want to go to there. I was like, yes, I will take your olive branch here. It was like a complimentary audition, because then I found out that the character was 20 years older than I was. Guillermo was 20 years older.
But he was always,
like, damn, I'm not going to be the right
He was
age.
always Latino.
He was always Guillermo.
Yeah,
he was always Latino. Yeah. Well, his name was Guillermo, and like that made the assumption that he was Latino. And I was like, but for all Hollywood,
right?
Like they could have said, his name's Guillermo, but he's not. And it's like, okay, great guys, great job. But like I was like, I just want to go meet her. I just want to meet the casting director, and I want to make my introduction. That's all I wanted. And I walked into the audition room in her office. I'm like, "Oh, here we go. I'm gonna meet Allison." And then she wasn't there. They're like, "Oh, she's not here. She's auditioning for this show right now in London." And I was just like, "What?" And I was like, "But I wanted to meet her." And it's like, "That's okay. We'll put you on tape." And I was like, "Put me on tape. That's great. That sounds good." And I was like, "Oh no." I was like, "She's not here." So they put the microphone on me. And then I just remembered, like, after that, I blinked out. I just remember I did Guillermo the way that I thought he would be at my age. And I wanted to age myself out. So like, I wanted to or age myself up, I guess you could say. So I wore this long sleeve, orange, like gross, like long sleeve shirt with a brown sweater vest. I found these Harry Potter glasses, and I popped the glass out, and I parted my hair in the middle, and I literally did it like Guillermo's hair is in the show now. And like I walked in like that, and I remember doing it. And after I was done, I don't remember what I did for the audition, because the casting associate was like, "Okay, you're done." And I was like, "Oh, I did it," and I didn't even remember doing it. Like that was that moment as an actor, you just fall into the character that you don't even remember what you did. And then as I walked out, he's like, "Wait, Harvey," and I was like, and I thought it was gonna be one of those moments like, "You booked it. There's no need for anyone else. You're the one." But he just,
"Oh, wow!"
And I go, "Yes," and he goes, "The microphone, it's still on." And I was like, "Oh." And then I got the microphone and I left. And a couple of hours, they called me and said, "You're testing." And I was like, "What?" "Yeah, you're going to test for it." But I thought the character was 20 years older. And they're like, "Well, he is. But if you book this, they're going to make him younger." And I was like, "Oh, wow." And he's like, "Yeah, but everyone voted on it. They had already shown it to Allison. They had shown it to Taika, Jermaine, FX, Paul Sims, Scott Rudin, everyone involved. And it was the first time that they had all unanimously voted yes on someone, because they had seen people since September. Now, this was probably early January, late January, I think it was. Yeah, late January. And 2 years ago, when we first started this process, not this past January, but the one before that. And it was just like, it was insane. Like, it was just like, I was the first person they had overloaded agency to test. A couple weeks go by, I don't hear about the test, and I'm driving with my sister, and I get a 16-digit call from like this number, and I was like, who's calling me? And I pick it up, I was like, hey, is this Javi? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, this is Jermaine Taika, you auditioned for us, and you're the one. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm gonna test, right? And he's like, no, you're not testing, we'll see you on set next week.
Oh,
I never tested.
Oh my gosh, that's a great story. Despite the fact you don't remember the audition. Obviously, you blew them away.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when it works, it works. But the story of my life. Is just a string of long, like, coincidence and great stories intertwined. Wait till the book comes out, guys. You're gonna love it.
We'll have you come on the show and talk about the book.
I mean,
so that's awesome.
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, basically, you walked in there and you basically told them, by the way, this is who this character is. Like, because you walked in there with the visuals and everything.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing with actors. Sometimes, for so long, especially being, Latinx and like being like myself and being round and short, and like I've always been told you're too this, you're too that, you're too fat, you're too Latino. You're being told what you're not, and you could forget that what you bring to the table is what you're selling. And so when I was told all those years that all my weaknesses were against me, my weaknesses, quote unquote, as you call them, were my strengths. And so when I come into the room, I come in with the confidence of what I am bringing. Yes, I am Latino. I'm like, yes, I'm round, I'm short. Like, this is all the things that I am, and it's part of what I'm creating for this character. So you're either going to want it or you don't. And if you don't, that's okay. It's just not your cup of tea. But I'm not going to waste another second trying to fill up your cup with the recipe that's not naturally mine.
That is probably one of the greatest things I've ever heard, and I want it on
awesome.
Like 4 T-shirts right now. Like, that is
so. Yeah, I mean that's a great stand to have, especially in such a volatile business like acting. That's a great attitude to have. That's awesome. So I want you, though, for those who have not seen the show, because it's better that you do it than we do it. I want you to explain to our whatever listeners we have that have maybe not seen the show, to tell them what the show is about.
Yeah. So what we do in the shadows is a show based off a movie by the same title, written and directed by Taika Waititi and Jimmy Clement. And basically it's a documentary crew that follows a group of vampires who have been living together for hundreds of years. Now, recently, in the last decade, a familiar has joined Nandor, the Relentless, who is the head of the household, as his, for lack of a better word, servant, in the hopes that with his service, he will get rewarded into being made into a vampire. So the clock is ticking, and it's already been a decade, and his master has no intentions in the near future of making him into a vampire. So he's taking, count of that and realizing that for a vampire, what's time? Time is nothing, but for a human, every second counts. And as the clock is ticking, you'll never be as young and as, vibrant and beautiful as you are today. And every day that goes by, that hope of staying at a certain age, a certain size, a certain, visual is slipping through the fingers. And with the potential of, having those vampiric powers, that come with like flying and, transforming and all that. So the documentary crew follows this everyday life of the vampires that are familiar. And after season 1, no spoilers, but I guess the spoiler if you haven't seen the show, we find out that Guillermo actually is a long lost descendant of Van Helsing, the most famous vampire killer in history. So that makes things a little harder for him, because now he's been wanting to be a vampire his whole life since he was a child, and now he sees why he's so drawn to vampires. Maybe it's because of that side of him that's naturally in him, and he explores that side even more in season 2. You can catch up with the first season on Hulu because now it's streaming, and catch up with all the episodes that have come out season 2 thus far. The episode that just passed, episode 4, is one of my favorite episodes, where we really get to see him in combat and really get to see his Van Helsing side.
That was a great episode.
Right.
That was
So I was, to our listeners, I was kind of chatting with Harvey before we started recording of how I'm not a vampire fan per se. I'm not a big fan of genre, but this show, I binged it and I couldn't get enough of it because of how hilarious it is. I can't remember the last time I saw such a funny show, and I'm not telling you this because you're our guest. I mean, it is one of the funniest shows I've seen in a long time. So while I was watching I'm curious. is all this? Do you?
Say again?
Yeah, no, it really is how funny it is. So, do you guys have, with the banter back and forth sometimes? Do you guys have is this partly improvised? Is this all scripted? Because just like the chemistry of the characters, it's just the humor is like so spot on.
Yeah, we do have a scripted version for every episode, which we follow, and the script alone would be amazing by itself already, but we do have the luxury and the freedom to improvise, and we always get from point A to point B really quickly because we know what the storyline is going to be, but it's always great to have the characters speak in their own way and just get the point across the way they want to. So it's like the dream job. I've never been on a show where the freedom of improv is so welcoming, because it's what makes the show so great too. So we take what's already scripted and we just run with that and add a little bit of improv, and that's the recipes for the show that you see.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys knock it out of the park.
Yeah, and I know that things are a little cuckoo bananas right now with all the the COVID and the Corona and all that. But you guys already filmed the whole season already before everything.
We did. We shot everything in December. We wrapped season 2. All we're doing right now is ADR. So we have the last couple of episodes, and ADR is just audio we can do from home, and I've been doing it in my closet, so it's not that hard. But we're glad that we got to finish it because it's perfect timing for the show. It's weirdly enough, it's a show about a group of vampires who are quarantined together.
This is true. This is very true. It's very true. And I know you've been hosting some pre-shows on Instagram Live, right? Where you chat with...
I have. I've been inviting all the guest stars to be on it. We've been lucky enough to have all of them say, they want to come on, and I've had guests who requested to come on. So I'm excited for the next couple of episodes. You're going to see some more faces. So tune in every Wednesday, an hour before the East Coast premiere, to my Instagram Live.
Yeah, and what's your Instagram handle for our listeners?
It's just Harvey Guillen.
Oh, okay.
All my name, just my full name.
Oh, okay.
Pretty
awesome.
Simple enough. Now, I know obviously what we do in the shadows is huge right now, but I know you've also done some work on an upcoming show this summer with Quibi, I think.
Yeah. It's called...
I don't know if you can talk about that or
Don't
not.
Look Deeper. Yeah, it's going to come on Quibi this summer, and it's directed by Catherine Hardwick, and it's called Don't Look Deeper.
Oh, wow, Catherine Hardwick.
So check it out. You guys have to go check it out on Quibi.
No, that's awesome, Harvey. So, I mean, obviously, we frigging love you on what we do in the shadows. I cannot say that enough, and I'm not just blowing smoke. And it airs, what is it, every Wednesday at 10 on FX, right?
Wednesday at 10 p.m. In the evening, and then you can catch it the next day on Hulu. All the episodes will always be available the day after on Hulu.
Yes, I've been rewatching them on Hulu, and honestly, I keep laughing like a moron here by myself in my house. So thank you for that. Thank you for making me look like a crazy person to all my neighbors through the window. But
yeah.
Thank you again so much, Harvey, for taking time. I know you're extremely busy, and you know what? Hope you stay safe throughout this Corona stuff, and that we can chat again for future projects.
Absolutely, this is fun.
Thank you for chatting this with us.
All right.
Thank you, Harvey.
Have a good one.
Take care.
All right, have a good one.
Bye bye.
And we're back.
Oh God. Okay, so literally, guys, when you're done with listening to this episode, you have to go binge watch What We Do in the Shadows. You just have to. It's hilarious. I'm biased, but you have to. And dude, Harvey was so nice. He was every bit the
I'm not gonna give anything away, but the evolution of his character.
Oh, for sure.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
For sure.
It's as crazy as Reese Witherspoon and Little Eyes. To tie back to what we were talking about before the interview.
Full circle.
It's freaking crazy, but I love it. I freaking love it. You know what? And again, it's not because we interviewed him and we loved the guy. I couldn't, on the show now, I can't get enough of Guillermo.
I mean, they're all great, but it's like I told him, I'm like, it's not easy when you're playing the human to steal a scene from the over-the-top vampires, and he does.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and he does it.
It's crazy. So, what opening the door can do. But anyway, it's soda time, right?
It is soda
we
time.
are thirsty.
We are thirsty. So our last soda this week is actually, in the last couple weeks, I feel like in the last months, but it's only been like 7 days or so, we've been hearing about, all these big corporations that keep applying for loans and, taking the money and giving it back and not necessarily doing the right thing. So with that said, I think it's good to also spotlight when these larger companies do something that's to be commended. And so for that reason...
The Heifer Corporation.
It's been a while. This week's last soda is actually going to go to Mattel Toys. Now, I don't know...
Oh, yes.
You saw that?
Line?
Yeah.
Yes.
They have put out I don't know if they're calling it the first responders line of toys, but essentially it's what it is. They're collectible figures that you can actually, I think, pre-order at the moment. And I think each figure or set is $20, and they're donating $15 out of each. So I mean, they're basically keeping $5, which that's unheard of from a profit margin, right? They're donating it to. It's called the Entertainment Industry Foundation, in support of hashtag First Responders First, which is a fund dedicated to providing essential items to frontline healthcare workers and their families. And so if you go to the website, I think through the end of May, you can order these figures, but they're really cute. Like they have doctors, nurses, EMTs, delivery drivers, and they have male, they have female, they have Asian, white, black. So they're doing all this big diversity push. And then they have actually the one that I kind of want to get is a 5-figure set. It's of you remember the Little People, Fisher Price Little People toys?
Yes.
So in it has a doctor, a nurse, an EMT, but it also has a delivery driver and a grocery store worker.
Oh, okay.
I think
how cute.
That's cute, and again, I know it's very easy this day and age to get upset when companies do the wrong thing, rightfully so, we should. But you know what? When they do something that's good, we should also call it out, especially a company like Mattel, which ultimately, they want everybody to be recognized, but the biggest thing that they want people to do is play. And really that's all about positivity and not in a toxic way, as we talked earlier. So last soda this week goes to Mattel Toys, and I am going to I'm definitely going to go and get that little gift set.
Yay, Mattel. Yay. Now when you said play, I thought about Jennifer Lopez.
Oh, well, I hope she's not on that giant plane.
Do you remember my whole thing with Play and her song?
No.
Okay, so Play, which I think is one of her most underrated songs.
That was the second single off of J-Lo, right?
Yes, that song is awesome, and so is the video. Play, come and you play my song. Do you know the part where she says, I told you 3 times,
yes,
play my motherfucking song. So the whole song is about her talking about her song, right?
Right.
And I've always said, when that song came out, I would always say, I'm like, I know what her song is. Her song is Let the Music Play. You know that? Let
Shannon.
The music play, we won't get away.
Yeah.
You don't remember me saying that back in the day?
Of course I do.
I was like, that's her song. Bueno, around that time, she came out with MTV Diary. This is the diary of
Jennifer Lopez.
And there was a scene where she was in her convertible Mercedes-Benz, and Let the Music Play came on, and she put the volume up, and she goes, this is my song. And I'm like, I told you that was her song. I don't know why. Like, I pictured Jennifer Lopez growing up, being Puerto Rican, growing up in the Bronx. Jennifer Lopez was a teenager in the 80s.
That's true. Freestyle, yeah.
Jamming to Let the Music Play. Like, I don't know why.
You know what? Because it's probably all true.
Yep. So, yeah. Well, everybody, on that note, we hope everybody is hanging in there and staying safe. And as we've been saying every weekend, thank you for, hanging in there with us and still listening to us. Our normal programming will one day resume, and Ishmael and I will see each other again one day.
I know, I miss you.
But until the time being, you're going to get the Corona edition version of our show. So we hope everybody listened, laughed, and learned. And as always, grab your pastelito, your croqueta, and your hopiña. And thank you for joining us, everybody. That was episode 108.
Yes, stay safe, mi gente.
Bye.
Bye. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.